Welcome to In Edina, a program about the people, places, and activities, all from the city of Edina. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and we're bringing you this broadcast from Grange Hall, a historic hotspot right here in the city of Edina. Our theme is all about the history of the city. And joining us to start the discussion is the director from the Edina Historical Society, Marcy Matson. Thanks so much for joining us on In Edina.
Thank you.
And for bringing us here to this beautiful building.
Yep, it's been a historic landmark for years, but it was built in the 1880s and was the center of community life.
Before we start talking about specific places in the city, from the historical perspective as a director of the society, talk a little bit about why is it so important that we remember our past?
Who we are in the past really tells us who we are in the future, and our identity as a city is completely different than St. Louis Park or Hopkins or Richfield. We were developed in a different way, we've become a different city, and that's the great thing about working for the Edina Historical Society is we really say what is about us. It's our story. So it's not George Washington's house, it's your house, your street, your community, your church, it's where you live.
And your role as the director is to help preserve some of that, to keep that memory alive.
Yeah, we have great memories within our archives. We preserve diaries, books, maps, photos. We have many things within our collections, but our real goal is to tell people about it too. It wouldn't do any good just for it to be back in a storeroom, but we tell people what life was like and how it did change who we are today.
Tell us about Grange Hall.
Well, the Grange Hall was an interesting place, and it was the community gathering point. There wasn't anywhere else to go, but this is where people gathered. There was plays on the stage, there was ice cream socials, elections were held here, city council met here as well.
So this was the spot. There's no malls to go to, no movie theaters to drive over to. This is it. Everything happened right here in Grange Hall.
Yep.
And right next door to Grange Hall, and by the way, we're just off Highway 100 in Eden Avenue about, but right next door is Cahill School.
Yep, Cahill School.
That's important too.
Yep, it's a lot of people actually have memories of going to Cahill School. It was in operation until the late 1950s. So we have volunteers, in fact, who went to Cahill School and goes to schools today to say what it was like to go there as a child. But it was built in 1864, served as a one-room schoolhouse. The building actually has been moved from southwest Edina, where Irish families, Irish farmers sent their children to go to school.
Huh. People might not know, where does the city of Edina get its name?
Well, the decision was actually made here at the Grange Hall. The Edina City Council met here before they were Edina and decided to incorporate in 1888. Tried to think of a bunch of different names and decided to take its name from the mill. There was a mill at Minnehaha Creek, which is no longer there, but it was named Edina Mill. And it was owned by a Scotsman, Andrew Craik, and he named it after his hometown of Edinburgh, Scotland. Edina is just a nickname for that.
Well, one of the things that people can do to look up where their house comes from and their school and their neighborhood is to go visit the museum.
That's right. We have besides the programs here at the Grange and Cahill School, we have a history museum located at 70th Street near Highway 100 in Arneson Acres Park. And there's an exhibit part of the museum, and there's also a research library part of the museum. So we have house pictures, maps, books, diaries, artifacts, you name it, we have it.
So if you're researching for your high school reunion, you can stop in the museum and pick up those facts that you probably weren't paying attention to while you were going to high school 50 years ago.
We have every yearbook from Edina. We also have phone directories that list your old classmates and all sorts of different things.
Good idea. Now you also have pictures of houses from the 50s?
Right. It's a very popular research tool. We have every photo of every house in Edina from that period. We also are in the process of organizing tax assessor records, which lists when additions were built to your house, how the valuation has changed, when it was built, and it also has photographs.
So folks will come in and you'll line them up and they'll do the research and they can learn more about their properties. Beautiful. Now, the exhibit is also interesting. You have sort of annual themes every year, and this year's theme is police and fire.
That's right. One of the things that we're really working on as an organization is to look at more modern history. People think of, oh, the Grange and Cahill School, the 1800s, but history happens every day. And so the police and fire exhibit covers the start and the continuation of the police and fire departments, and which really didn't start. 1940s was when the fire department started.
Wow.
And 1930.
It was long after Edina got started.
Long after, yeah. But in our research, we did discover that occasionally they would hire a police officer for dances and elections to keep the peace.
They were partying out here in Edina.
Yeah, that's right. Teenage dances.
And we should remind folks this was all farmland in the early 1800s, and then developments slowly, one by one, were made, which of course then as the city gets organized, they're going to have a police department and a fire department.
That's right. What the Country Club District was really the first residential suburban type development in Edina, and as a result of people moving there, they wanted police protection. So they did hire Percy Redpath as their first police officer, and he had a Model T car that he drove 50 miles a day throughout Edina.
Wow.
Yes.
Holy smokes, not very much.
Yeah. So we have that. But then, you know, Edina was really rural for a long time, which people don't realize. We have two photographs in our museum, aerial views of Edina. One is it's taken in 1951, and most of southern Edina is still farmland. This was before Southdale was built.
Wow.
Before a lot of development.
And so you can compare that to about, what was it,
2005
then? And you can take a look and see how we've progressed over time.
Yeah, before freeways, before 494, before Crosstown.
Now you're also not only looking back, but you're also figuring out how do you take a snapshot of today so that it's preserved for tomorrow's future.
Yeah, another thing that we really want to do is make sure that we get today's history before people move away or die or get rid of stuff. That's happened to us before too. That, oh, I threw it away. I didn't think it was important. And so we have interviewed more than 50 people for oral histories. We contact people to make sure that they're collecting histories for their own organizations.
Well, memberships clearly help keep the memories alive as well. Talk about how people can get involved.
Well, we are a nonprofit organization. We're lucky enough to operate in park buildings owned by the city because they're historic and the city wants to save them. But memberships support our program, so that allows us to do exhibits, to do speakers, to bring volunteers out to schools and talk about what life was like in the old days. Memberships start at $15, so every $15 helps support the Historical Society.
We have a little more than 300 members now and growing.
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much. Clearly you love your work, and we really appreciate you helping to keep the history alive here in the city of Edina.
Thank you.
Well, a school has always been the central focus part of a community. And here in the city of Edina, Cahill School remains a key cog in the system here, and students continue to go to the one-room schoolhouse to this very day to learn what history was like in school way back when. And joining us is a school marm herself. We have Jan Solomonson, who's here to talk about what it's like to be a school marm and all about Cahill School. Thanks so much for telling us. What an exciting opportunity for young people.
Yes,
to come
really
to Cahill School. When did Cahill School start?
In 1975, Cahill School held its first classes for children to come on their field trip day to the Cahill School to experience a year in the year 1900.
And why is experiencing the year 1900 so significant to 20th century students?
Well, it's important for children to remember their history, where they have come from, what has happened and transpired prior to them growing up in the modern day, so that we can take them into the future for a successful life in the future for these children. Remembering where we've been brings us into the future.
And you can't just always get it from a book.
Right.
I mean, this is a real life, hands-on experience. These students come prepared to learn in a one-room schoolhouse. Talk about that experience.
Well, their teachers in their public school, religious school, or homeschool group prepare them to come to Cahill by talking about the history of Minnesota. Many of these children are learning about Minnesota history in their curriculum in whatever school setting they're in currently. So when they come to Cahill School, they have studied what it is like to be a child in the year 1900 and come prepared to learn the lessons of that time. And they are dressed in period-style clothing, bringing lunches of that time to prepare them for their day here at the Cahill School.
So the girls are wearing
bonnets, long skirts, often an apron or a shawl.
And the boys are wearing?
Hats, pants, suspenders, white shirts.
And there's no school cafeteria here, folks.
No, there's not. No hot lunch program.
You got to bring your lunch.
Yes.
And you bring your books.
Yes.
And what I think is probably the most challenging piece is we're talking about the span of ages all in the same room at the same time.
Yes. Yes, children could have come to school as young as 3 and 4 years old, up to 18 to 21. The teacher would have prepared lessons for every child and would have taught those children their lessons in groups, depending on their age and their ability.
And a school year was built around the farm season back then, right?
Yes,
this
children
is
would
1900s?
come. Yes, children would come to school in the summer months, and then when the fall harvest time came, they would not come back to school until after harvest. And then through the winter months, we'd see them back at school. And when planting time began in the spring, then there would be a school break again, and the children would come back after the planting season was done.
So when students of today walk back into time, into this classroom, this one-room schoolhouse, they're here for about 4 hours.
Yes.
And they have their lunch here, and they actually do the lessons. What are the lessons of yesterday?
They do reading, writing, and arithmetic. They learn farm science and often do an art project of that time frame.
And they're probably saying there's no computer here.
No.
There's no calculator here.
No.
And there's no electricity here.
Exactly. Yes.
What do they think about that?
Most of the children are fascinated with the whole idea. Within minutes of the children arriving at school, they have comfortably fit into the year 1900. They accept it as a way of life within minutes of being in the building.
And they also learn a little bit something about what students learned back then. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is just as important today as it was back then.
Yes, it is.
But relationships are even more important.
Yes. When the children come here, the older students often have to help the younger students because the teacher is busy helping a group of children, depending on their age and their class, doing the lessons that they need to do for that particular lesson, be it math, arithmetic, or science. So the older students are helping the younger students with work that they need to have done. Also, older students are working independently on things that the teacher is asking them to do.
So they have to be really aware of who they are as an individual and then how to take care of each other.
Yes.
How many in a room at one time?
In 1900, you could have had up to 40 students in one room. When we bring children in from their homeschool groups or their public school groups here at Cahill, generally we have around 30 students.
Wow. And I'm sure the teachers of today, when they come and take a look at this one-room schoolhouse, they're saying to themselves, oh my word.
Yes.
How could I have done it back then?
Yes, exactly. And the teachers enjoy the day as much as the children do. It's an opportunity for them to really reflect back on where teaching has traveled throughout the years and why it is as difficult as it is today with all the technology and all the new things to learn. There's a lot more for children and teachers to learn these days.
Yeah, different challenges from yesterday and today. And no principal's office to send those children to when they get out of hand. They got to handle themselves. Right. So you ring the bell and you have a homeschool or homemade lunch and you learn the lessons of yesterday in Cahill School. Beautiful. It takes a community to bring something like this together and keep it together. Talk about that for a second.
Well, I believe that the strength of the program of the Cahill School not only comes from the dedication of the school marms that teach these children when they come to visit us each school day. It also takes the entire community. We are affiliated with the City of Edina as well as the Edina Historical Society, so they support our program and do an awful lot to help us continue this great program that we're offering. Also, the parents and the teachers of the children that come and visit us do a lot to prepare their children to visit the Cahill School, and without that groundwork, it would be difficult to start our day every day. Those children are well prepared when they come to Cahill School.
Absolutely wonderful. Thanks so much for teaching these students a little bit about history and bringing it forward into the future. We really appreciate it. If schools or parents are interested in taking a trip to Cahill School, how do they get a hold of you?
They can look on our Edina website under Cahill School, or they can also call Carol Kuhlman, our school marm. That is the head school marm here at Cahill School.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, it is the holiday season, and if you're looking for a gift idea, we've got a little piece of history you might want to pass on in your family. Joining us to talk about it is Linda Stewart, the artist who brought the idea to the city of Edina 20 years ago. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking about holiday Christmas ornaments that you can put on the holiday trees. And you brought this idea 20 years ago, 1988, was it?
That's right. In 1988, Edina had their centennial celebration, and I thought it would be a great idea to promote Edina and the celebration by offering to do them a hand-painted Christmas ornament depicting their logo, which was the Edina Mill.
And of course, at that time, they thought it was a great idea too, and they thought it was so good, they said, yes, let's create a new Christmas ornament every single year, and we'll feature different pieces of our beautiful city. And we're going to take a look at this one here. Whether you're an old-timer or a newcomer to the city, everybody knows about this.
Absolutely. The Edina Theater is a wonderful, wonderful historic building that still has its marquee. The theater was done quite a number of years ago, but fortunately it's still available at the Historical Society's gift shop.
So you get a piece of history right here on the ornament, and you can take it with you if you dare leave this city, move out for some reason, or collect them all because you are living here and pass them on throughout your family. And the Historical Society decides what piece of the city is on the ornament every year, is that right?
Yes, they are really thoughtful in the way they look at their city. They look at the city from things that are still here, like the Historical Society, and those things that are long gone. And they give me ideas each year for what they'd like to feature. I either go out into the field and take photographs, or I use their historic photographs and information to come up with samples for them that they then decide what to feature for a particular year.
What an interesting concept. Now, you actually then take that back to your studio and then just grab the ornament and start painting.
I do. I don't do any work on paper because with a three-dimensional sphere that the ornament is, a straight line on a piece of paper doesn't translate to a straight line on a sphere. So I actually do all my samples and all my work directly on the ornaments.
And these are all hand-painted. How many of these are you making?
I do thousands of ornaments each year for other groups and organizations, but Edina is one of my earliest clients, and it's been wonderful to work with them over all these years. Each year of the 20 years is a different ornament. This year we'll be featuring the Centennial Lakes Park, both a winter and summer scene on the front and back of the ornament, and it's a wonderful way to celebrate that park and all the activities and memories that go on there.
And because it's created by an artist and hand-painted, it's obviously a collectible. How much is an ornament?
The ornaments are retailed for $12 each, and the unique thing about them is because I hand paint each one individually, every one has a little bit of difference between them. So when someone purchases it, it is truly their own ornament.
And their own special gift, and they're available at the Edina Historical Society for sale in the gift shop there. What an interesting concept. How long does it take you to do one ornament?
Well, I don't do one at a time. I do them in groups of 12 or 15. When I do one, I start with the basic color of the building or the subject matter and then add details as I go along after they are dried. So it's a process, but I can only do so many at a time because they are still all hand-painted.
Well, what a great idea, and what a fun gift to give, and I really appreciate you telling us your story here in Edina.
Great.
Thanks so much. You're watching in Edina. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and we are talking about the fabulous history in the city of Edina. And helping to preserve the heritage of the city of Edina is Associate Planner Joyce Repia. You're from the Heritage Preservation Board, and it's a very different role from the work of preserving history. Talk about the differences.
Right. Well, I'm the staff liaison to the Heritage Preservation Board, and the Heritage Preservation Board was established in 1976 as an advisory board to the City Council. And their responsibility is to oversee the preservation of historic resources in the city of Edina.
So you're primarily talking about places or districts and areas of property that are recognized as landmarks of value because of their history.
That's correct.
Here in the city. Wonderful. So you work with the historical folks to be sure that those concepts are kept in place. And around laws too, like as zoning laws change and codes and ordinances change too. You want to make sure that the past is still
Right.
preserved.
There is a section in the zoning code that addresses heritage preservation.
Huh. Well, one simple example is, for instance, here in Grange Hall, the windows had to be replaced because they wore out, but they had to be replaced in such a way so that they preserved this place in history.
Correct, and we had bids for the project, and we had to review the plans, and so they indeed were replaced following the preservation plan that was created for this building.
Wonderful. Now, this is one of 7 different recognized landmarks in the city of Edina.
That's correct.
Can you name them for us?
Sure. Well, of course, Grange Hall, the Cahill School, right next door. Yeah. We've got 3 private homes that are recognized. They're all agricultural and rural farmsteads, actually, from the 1880s. We've got the Jonathan Grimes House on West 44th Street. We've got the George Baird House on West 50th Street, and we have the Paul Peterson House on Interlochen Boulevard. Then we also have the Browndale Bridge and the Edina Mill site. We have the Edina Theater sign at 50th and France, and then we have the Edina Country Club District, which is 550 homes in that neighborhood, and it's recognized for the preservation planning that went into that district because that was the first residential planned neighborhood in the state.
So that's an example then of a whole area rather than just one particular
Correct. Each house
building or
is
site.
Not designated. It's the entire district.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. Now, to have this type of designation, it takes the cooperation of the Heritage Preservation Board, of course, City Council, and the place itself.
Correct.
Talk about that process. It's a compromise. It's an agreement.
It is, and we work closely with property owners to determine a plan of treatment for the property to make sure that the methods that are used for preserving the places are in keeping with what the property owner hopes for the property, as well as what the Heritage Preservation Board has determined is important as well.
Now, Southdale Mall, given its place in history, isn't recognized as a landmark?
No, it is not. And that is, the Southdale Mall is an area that we did look at in the 1990s. However, the property owners at that time determined that the landmark designation would be too restrictive for their ability to grow and change in the commercial market. And so the determination was made that it would not be established as a landmark. However, Southdale Mall has done a wonderful job of preserving their historic pieces. Some of them are in our museum. Yeah. They have wonderful archives for Southdale Mall. And there are some elements that still exist at Southdale Mall. There's the clock on the wall in the garden court,
right.
The clear-story windows in the garden court, as well as there's a metal sculpture that one can find that was original to the 1950s.
And of course, being the first enclosed mall in the country is making their place in history, and that will never change.
That's correct.
But in order to keep it from being restricted in terms of growing commercially into the future, it's not recognized as a landmark. So that's an example of how the heritage preservation and the historical folks work together.
Correct.
To keep memories intact and to keep growth moving ahead.
That's right.
Wonderful balance there. Now, you work together to advise the City Council, and not everything can be recognized as a landmark, but clearly people and places can be recognized for the work they do to keep things going, and you do that with an annual award. Can you talk about that?
That's right. We have an annual Heritage Award, and it started in 2003. We take nominations in February, and we award the Heritage Award in May, which is Preservation Month.
What are some examples of recognitions that you've handed
Well,
out?
this past May, we had a really fun award to the Sly House, which is over on Brookview Avenue. And it's the original farmstead. It was 160 acres that bordered Valley View Road and Concord Avenue. And what the owners of that beautiful farmhouse wanted was a basement family room, but there was only one problem. They didn't have a basement. So what they
It's a big problem.
It was. And what they did is they found the company that moved the Schubert Theater. And this company jacked their house up, and they continued to live in the house as the family room was created in a new basement.
So they were able to preserve the past yet grow into a basement for the future for the family.
Exactly.
And that's worthy of an award. And of course, you don't have to go through that extreme to necessarily receive an award, but nominations are accepted in February through
Correct.
April, and the awards are handed out in May. Thank you so much for all the work you do with the Heritage Preservation Board and keeping the city of Edina's memory intact for many years to come.
My pleasure.
We mentioned that the Edina Country Club District is a heritage landmark, but there's quite a process involved in making that happen. And joining us to talk about that process is Jane Longquist. She's a resident in the 550 home district, but that process that you got involved in not only puts you on the map, but it may impact other districts in the future. Talk about that.
Well, the Country Club District was put on the National Historic Register in 1980 in recognition that it was one of the first planned communities, first-tier suburbs in the U.S. and certainly in Minnesota, which is a wonderful honor, but is really all carrot and no stick. The city, thankfully, got involved to help preserve that resource and named Country Club in 2003 a heritage district, giving it special protection within the city. My involvement in the neighborhood came in 2004 when I moved here and sensed among other neighbors concern that even though the city had named it a heritage landmark, there were changes inappropriate to the neighborhood and that the pace had gotten out of control.
What kind of changes?
Tear downs and infill, the sort of thing that's going on throughout the metro area and certainly throughout Edina. But special concern that it was just threatening the historic integrity. So what I did was organize a committee, and with great response from the Heritage Preservation Board and encouragement, we put together a neighborhood survey of opinion. And half the neighborhood responded, and the results were very strong, that 87% of the people who responded wanted to see the guidelines and the enforcement from the city be strengthened in terms of more heritage preservation for Country Club.
Wonderful. And that took time.
It took time, but the wonderful thing is that the city has been very responsive. In result of our survey, the Heritage Preservation Board and the city has spent a lot of time this summer doing an additional inventory of the neighborhood, finding out more about the houses, their history, the architecture, so that they can be better informed and make more careful decisions in the future.
Well, one of the reasons why that's important is that future decisions now will help keep the city on track and on pace with change and new development.
Well, I think so. I think that the Country Club District actually has a strong resonance throughout the city right now, and the reason is that we were placed on the Historic Register not because it's a great collection of period revival architecture from the 20s and 30s. It is, but you can find beautiful homes throughout the metro area. The reason Country Club is significant and is being preserved is because it was carefully zoned, and the Thorpe brothers, Samuel and James Thorpe, who planned that neighborhood, had very specific and restrictive deed restrictions, wanting to say you must set back the houses, you must restrict the size of houses, and the result was they had a very cohesive, unified look. They called their deed restrictions rigid but wise. In fact, one of their ads in Minneapolis said that if you move to Country Club, you will be protected from living next to a monstrosity or an eyesore. And I think that phrase really resonates with a lot of the neighborhoods throughout Edina right now that are struggling with infill construction and new houses that are grossly disproportionate to their neighbors. And so I guess I would see that there's a resonance for city leaders that they could hopefully put in place ordinances that are also rigid but wise and help to preserve some of the cohesive and livable neighborhoods that we have throughout the town.
And I think it's important, too, that you've got residential voices behind this planning process. It's not a dictatorship here, it's a process. It's a planned community, it's a relationship again.
Very
and
much.
that's what builds a community.
Well, and it's evolving too. I think that City Hall and the volunteers who work hard on the Heritage Preservation Board, I appreciate that it's volunteer time and expertise, are recognizing that their good intentions that they put in place in 2003 were not achieving the intended effect. So with input from the neighborhood, they're revising them and considering at this very moment how they can change them in the future to better preserve Country Club.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that work and bringing together the government into the process so that your planned community is not only nationally recognized and locally recognized, but a model for future developments to come.
Hope so.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Jane.
Bye.
It's fun to take a look back at history from time to time. We certainly hope you enjoyed our historical look back at the city of Edina. We'd like to thank all of our guests for their expertise and for permission to broadcast right here from Grange Hall. For now, I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. You've been watching In Edina. Until next time, have a good day.